Morning. It's blowing a gale outside here in Cornwall today, so you might hear the wind. I've just come back from walking Thebes. It was brilliant. I was out for about 2.5 hours. Walked all the way around the hill that's the back of my house here, and then came back over the top of the hill. That was top of the hill. It was just really blowing very strongly, and I could look down into the valley where my house is, and there was a great storm blowing up the valley. You know, just sideways rain all the way up the valley. I could see it below, and I was going to walk into it. But as I walked down, the wind blew the rain past. You know, so I just walked. It didn't rain all the way down, which was brilliant. I mean, it's really windy, but not, as I say, not rainy, which was nice actually, because I've had enough of getting wet, and so has Phoebe. But on a slightly different topic today for myself, really. I've been talking a lot about spirituality, and I'm still thinking about it, but I'm thinking about consciousness again. I think about this a lot, you know, but I'm thinking about it in the light of some of the things I've been reading and looking at, partly in the Philosophy of Mind forum, partly in videos I've been looking at, and also partly in relation to a video I made a couple of days ago about what do you want? I don't know what you mean. About the kind of claustrophobia associated with sharing the same moment in time with someone. I called it contemporary-phobia. Anyway, I'm going to see if I can blend all those things together. Because the excuse me a sec. The first thing is to do with this about consciousness, and I'm thinking particularly about this term global consciousness, because I came across a posting on the Philosophy of Mind forum pointing to a website by a guy who I think works at Princeton, but the site doesn't seem to be associated with Princeton, and it's about a long-running experiment that he has been involved in, and other people like Dean Radin, I can't remember this chap's name, but I'll find it, have been involved in which they're trying to detect, I guess, the noosphere, you know, the kind of global mind outside of, you know, that global consciousness is what they call it, the Global Consciousness Project. And they're doing this by having this network of random number generators, about 60 random number generators scattered across the globe, endlessly churning out data, just churning out long strings of random numbers. And the hypothesis seems to be that that when some kind of global event happens, an event that attracts the consciousness and attracts the attention of a lot of people in the world, that somehow this combined conscious occupation that all these people will be having will, through some process that I wasn't clear about, affect the random number generators. So instead of being random, you'll see patterns. That's the theory. So a big event like 9/11, which seems to be the poster boy event for this particular site, like when 9/11 happens, of course thousands, hundreds of thousands, millions of people around the world are occupied with that thought, and because they're all occupied with the same thought right about the same time, so the idea goes, it changes the noosphere, changes global mind, and somehow global mind has an effect on the random number generators. That's that idea. I don't like it. I think it's bullshit, but I might be wrong, you know, I accept that. I mean, I've looked at the data and I've looked at the research methodology, and it seems full of holes to me. They don't really clearly identify what an event is, nor do they clearly identify what time frame they're looking at. You know, whether it's 24 hours round about the event, what the notional event, or whether it's the exact second the event takes, all those kind of things. So it seems to me it's got big methodological problems, quite apart from any theoretical shortfalls it might have. But, you know, fantastic, interesting nonetheless. And the other source is a video featuring Rupert Sheldrake, who used to be a physicist many years ago, and then kind of went a bit woo, to be honest. He wrote a series of books, New Science of Life and one or two others, around what then he was calling morphogenic fields, which is a kind of vitalist idea that he had, and which he still has, he still talks about it, that all living things have a kind of aura around them. Actually, I'll just show you something. Oh, sorry to keep you waiting, I'm just going to show you something. Look, this is my aura, look. Aura photograph. Look how green I am. That means I'm a thinker, apparently. Anyhow, anyway, Sheldrake reckons, you know, that we have this kind of aura of, or all living things have this aura of life, or of life force of some kind around them, which is which is, kind of provides a template for how things grow, really. And this morphogenic field is a kind of habit, an electromagnetic version of habit. That's kind of how he talks about it. Anyway, in addition to that, and kind of extending out from that, he's more recently been talking about extended mind, entangled mind. Again, kind of bleeding into people like Dean Radin and the guy who runs the Global Consciousness Project. Similar kinds of ideas to do with mind being, for Sheldrake at least, almost literally a kind of electromagnetic field. I mean, he talks about it as field theory is how he describes his theory of mind, in the way that, as I say, morphogenic fields was his theory of how life adopts certain forms. So in that model, it's almost as if the brain is a transmitter for some kind of electromagnetic energy. And at one point he talks about this field, the noospheric field that is coming out of our minds, being affected, steered, modulated by things like attention or even intention. So in talking about attention, he seems to be suggesting that when we draw our attention to something, like my attention is right now being drawn to, what? Bottle of milk. I was looking for something interesting, but something boring is more interesting. So because I'm attending to this, he says, some part of my mind is kind of reaching out and touching it. That's exactly what he says. Touching it, he says. I don't buy that. But also, not only that, but intention. So he writes, for example, about the feeling of being stared at, which I guess would be this kind of thing. You can feel the attention being probing in the back of the head. But also when dogs know that their masters are coming home. Phoebe hasn't got a clue, but she might be thick. And he claims to have evidence of this, but again, I've looked at the evidence and I think it's full of holes. But he says the idea that dogs knowing their masters are coming home is a product of not attention but intention. That dogs can somehow sense the intention of their master to get in the car and drive home. So these are all kind of disturbances in the force. Yeah, the noosphere which is being emitted. I have to say, I think this is. I'm both bored and frustrated by these ideas. Not that I don't kind of find them interesting in a kind of poetic sense, but actually I don't. This is the thing, you see. I find them failing both as science and poetry. I think the science is crap because particularly in Sheldrake's case, he speculates endlessly in these theories about noospheres and about telepathy and all this kind of stuff. But as far as I can see, he doesn't actually provide any robust evidence. There's actually a phenomena there to talk about. You know what I mean? He's producing this data, but people are saying, look, your data's shot, your data's rubbish. And he doesn't take any notice. He just assumes that his data describes an accurate phenomenon and then goes on to theorise about what might be causing that phenomena. So that's the first thing. I think it's crap science. But, because if you're going to describe something, you first have to know whether that thing exists, right? You're not just seeing a mirage. And I don't think he does that. So it's bad science. But it's also, I find it just bad poetry. And by that I mean, if you were going to think of some way to talk about consciousness, and consciousness is a difficult thing to talk about. I think it's quite a difficult thing to do science about, but it's certainly a difficult thing to talk about, isn't it? We always talk about it through metaphors, and the metaphors are always fail at certain points. But if you're going to talk about it, one of the least interesting ways, it seems to me, is as a kind of magnetic force that comes out of your head. It just seems so banal, as an explanation. It reminds me of those kind of 19th century understandings of life force is a bit like electricity. That was the thing. Hence Frankenstein. The life force is like electricity. If anybody says that now, I think, no, electricity is what keeps the lights on. Life is a bit different to that, a bit more complicated and more difficult to understand. And there's Sheldrake said, no, it's a bit your mind, whatever the hell it is. It's just like a big magnet, like a radio set. It's just a force that's emitted by the complex organs of the brain. So yeah, so those are my frustrations with both global consciousness and Sheldrake's extended mind. I mean, I find Sheldrake irritating for all kinds of reasons, actually. He's kind of anti-science in a way that I don't find helpful. I mean, yeah, science has problems, and some people who are like really keen on science are just painful. But But he's kind of anti-science in a really tedious way. He's always coming out with what I think of as the Tin Man fallacy. It's a bit like the straw man fallacy. Tin Man fallacy, which is that he just holds up like mechanistic science, as he endlessly calls it, as a, and he paints a really kind of parody version of science, as if it's like really old-fashioned robots from 1930s science fiction films. So I don't appreciate his approach at all. It's nonsense. It's doubly awkward actually, or irritating for me, because he's talking in this video, which I'll put in the description box. He's talking at the Schumacher Centre, which is in Dartington, where I used to work, or at least I used to work in the same estate, you know, which used to house the college I used to work at. Also housed the Schumacher Centre, and I went to a few talks there. I saw David Bohm talk there many years ago, physicist. But anyway, yeah. So those are irritating. Global consciousness, bad science, bad poetry. But just to close, the reason why that I find this impinging on that idea I talked about claustrophobia is when people talk about global consciousness, and particularly these kind of folk, they talk about it as if it's a kind of mind melding. This is how I anticipate it, at least, almost like a mind melding process. As I attend to you, as I said, part of me is literally going out and touching you, and vice versa. If you're attending to me, then part of you is reaching through this camera screen right now and touching me. And I just think, well, get the fuck off. You know, that's my first response. I don't want to be part of a noosphere which involves other people's minds touching me. Get your fucking hands off you. You know, that's my feeling of that. Now, it might be because I'm paranoid, or it might just be like a bit of personal space or personal time, personal mind. But I'd also like, if I was going to go for a noosphere, if I was going to have an extended mind, I would want intermediaries. I'd want things that exist between me and you, which are kind of buffers, so I'm not being impinged upon by the probing fingers of your mind and vice versa. I would want something in between us, a medium. And that medium could be as complex as you like. It doesn't have to be this relatively insubstantial, thin, low bandwidth medium. It can be smarter than I am, this medium. I don't care. I just don't want to be cheek by a jowl with someone else's brain cells. Actually, I'm going to make a video about this because I collect. Sorry, this is something that sounds so tangential, but it will make sense at some point in the future. I collect. One of the things I collect is multi-tools. I found this one on the market a few weeks ago, and this is one that was given to me, a bicycle tool, which I particularly like. I got about 3 or 4 different bicycle tools. I love this, by the way. And these for me are for reasons I'll explain in a different video. These objects are really good metaphors for the kinds of intermediaries that I would like if I was going to have an intelligent noosphere. If I was going to have a global consciousness, it wouldn't be because my brain just kind of soaked into yours and became one. It would be because we had lots of really complex multi-tools operating between us. Anyway, the porridge is done. I'm starving. Hope this made some kind of sense and wasn't too long. And see you on the flip side. Bye.